Hello. If you're wondering where you are, you're following Grandma. It's dark outside, and as I peer out of my wee window, I can see the Bell Rock Lighthouse flashing on the horizon. The lighthouse was designed by Robert Stevenson, the grandfather of Robert Louis Stevenson, who wrote Treasure Island and Kidnapped. The Bell Rock Lighthouse was literally built stone by stone on a dangerous rocky outcrop 11 miles out in the North Sea, and it saved hundreds of ships and lives for more than 100 years. They say that some of the inspiration for Robert Louis Stevenson's seafaring stories came from trips with his granddad to see several lighthouses he designed. I've often wondered if they ever made the sea journey from Arbroath to the Bell Rock, which is now the world's oldest surviving sea-washed lighthouse. Every night I can see its light winking on the horizon as I draw my bedroom curtains. As darkness falls, I can see flights of seabirds returning to their nests further up the coast in the cliffs. Low-flying shags skim in small posses over the sea. Seagulls take a quick check around the harbour walls, looking for any discarded fish and chip wrappers. And the last remaining cormorants stand on the rocks and give their wings a final shake as the sun slowly goes down. Finally, the distinctive sound of the oyster catchers can be heard as they sweep by like wardens, ensuring that all birds are obeying the curfew and are safely home for the night. It's quite a variety show. One of the joys of living so close to the sea is observing the seasons and nature. I'm also near to the Scottish mountains and glens, and that's a very different side to nature. Last week I was up at Glendinning Nature Centre where there's recent footage of the 2 Scottish wildcats which are roaming the local glens. There's also great excitement at the arrival of a kitten. All of this has been captured on their wildlife cameras, and the young ranger's enthusiasm was very infectious. This respect for nature and local wildlife was so uplifting. Last year I went in search of ospreys, which have been in decline due to illegal killing and egg-hunting human predators and low breeding numbers. I'd heard they'd returned and were nesting on an island in a nearby loch. I'd read descriptions of the osprey. A large raptor reaching more than 60 centimetres in length. Its normal flight tops out around 50 kilometres an hour, but the osprey is capable of speeds of up to 125 kilometres an hour in steep dives where it captures unsuspecting fish. When seen in flight from below, the osprey has white or slightly mottled underparts. The wings are angled, bending in the middle, and there's a black patch which contrasts with the white wing linings. At a distance, this spectacular fish-eating bird of prey could be mistaken for a very large gull. One Tuesday morning, I drove 6 miles inland and parked up in a discreet car park near the loch. And I made my way down the muddy path towards a promontory near the water's edge. 3 sullen-looking men with big binoculars round their necks turned a suspicious gaze towards me. I stood quietly under the trees, with rain running down the back of my neck, and tried to merge into the background. I could see the nest high in the trees on the small island. A couple of sticks were protruding at the side, but there was no evidence of a bird of prey. The loch rippled as a gust of wind blew across it. Eventually, I asked the men standing next to me, "Any activity today?" There was a pause, and then a short and informative response. "The adults took the baby out for a test flight half an hour ago. They're back in the nest, and the male's gone hunting." Wow, I'd just missed something very special. But this wasn't a show for spectators. This was nature in the raw. As the men realised I obviously knew how to behave when observing ospreys, I was learning fast, they became more friendly. It turned out these were serious ornithologists who were voluntarily providing security for the returning ospreys. They'd been providing round-the-clock surveillance, protecting the nest, then the eggs, and now logging the progress of the fledgling ospreys from opportunist thieves. Often vandals and criminals climb the trees, steal the eggs and sell them. But these three dedicated ornithologists were doing a hard job in all weathers, ensuring that the ospreys were welcomed back and had a safe breeding ground in this small loch in Angus. I didn't see the ospreys fly that day. I had to make another visit for that. But what I did observe that morning was respect and care for nature and the ospreys. Another story about caring for animals came from a friend whose husband Andrew is a flautist in a Scottish orchestra. One night he was driving from the Glens to play in a concert in Perth. The winter light was fading fast, and as he rounded a bend and drove into an area of thick forest, he caught sight of a young deer at the side of the road. It had been hit by a car and had partly dragged itself into the edge of the trees, where it appeared to have died. Because of the concert, Andrew hadn't time to stop, but made a mental note to check the deer on his way home. A few hours later, after the concert, he drove slowly into the forest. The young form was still there and had moved further into the trees. He pulled in, and as his headlights flashed over the animal, he saw it move. The deer was still alive, but had little chance of surviving. So he phoned the SSPCA, who look after injured animals, and they agreed to come out immediately. He said he'd stay until they arrived. He was late getting home, but as he explained to his wife, the deer was still alive and distressed, and had agreed to wait till the vet arrived. I couldn't just leave him alone in the dark night. I wondered if I talked quietly it might calm him, so I began by telling him about the concert, what we played, the name of the conductor, and how the audience had enjoyed the evening. And it seemed to work, and he quietened down. I told him about the other members of the orchestra. Then I explained that I played a flute, and I had this idea which might sound a bit crazy, but I went to the car, took my flute out of its case, sat down on a log under the fir trees, and began to play quietly. As the music filled the night air, it seemed to soothe him, and slowly he lost consciousness. I continued to play, and he drifted peacefully away. It was such an incredibly moving experience. Sometimes it's the simplicity of stories like this that quite take my breath away. It was a beautiful example of real respect for nature and animals. It also reminded me of the power of music in our lives and the way it connects us to each other and with the universe. Music has played a big part of my life, and I'm still learning about new kinds of music that different generations are creating and sharing with me. I was very musical as a child, went off to study at the Royal College of Music in London, and for a while I felt that music might be my career. But I left that behind when life took over and I found myself married with 3 small children. Recently, I acquired a spinet upright piano from an auction house in Montrose here in Scotland. It took some manoeuvring to fit it through the door of my small cottage, but it settled in perfectly. It was only later I found a little white card tucked inside that told me it was built in the USA in 1941 and crossed the Atlantic sometime after. I love it. I often play late at night. And at Christmas, I invite friends round and we have carols and mulled wine, and one of our friends, David, plays the bagpipes. The entire street, including the punters of the pub next door, gather on the traditional washing green which overlooks the sea, and we sing together, and David plays. An experience life in London would never have afforded me. Music has an incredible power to transcend and to help us through difficult periods. It means different things to different people at different times, but it's always there. Many people will remember, as I do, the first time they danced madly to ABBA with friends or family, or shrieked Gloria Gaynor's "I Will Survive" and meant it, or simply pretended they were on a desert island disc programme and they'd chosen "I Did It My Way." Music is one of the things I am most grateful for, and gratitude is something I practice on a daily basis. It's such an antidote to everyday worries and concerns. Life in Scotland is sometimes like beachcombing. When I'm wandering along and least expecting it, treasure reveals itself. Whether it's the birds flying home at sunset, echoes of music in a forest, or the security of a lighthouse on a stormy night. Sometimes taking time to stop and search through the flotsam and jetsam of our lives can be very soothing. This week, I went for a massage with Fiona in her peaceful studio beside Arbroath Harbour. When the weather's good, Fiona does Qigong classes on the beach and runs supportive health days using music and sound for carers, people suffering stress, and people like me. This week, Fiona shared her special antidote to stress. Every day when she wakes up, she asks for something magical to happen to her. No matter how simple, it may be the beautiful sound of a blackbird singing its heart out, the child's naughty smile, or an unexpected phone call from an old friend. She says she's never disappointed. Usually, I ask the universe for guidance or help. Today, I tried using Fiona's wisdom and asked for magic. I went for a walk on the cliffs. It was a beautiful day. The sun was shining, the wildflowers were blooming, the birds were on top form, and the sea was peaceful. I didn't think it could get any better. I walked further than usual, and as I turned towards the village of Auchmithy, my eye caught sight of something odd on the edge of the cliff. At first I thought it was a fence with big dots on it, but as I got closer, I could see it was actually a metal art installation. It was shaped like a piece of music made up of wrought iron musical notes dancing on a wrought iron musical stave. I moved closer. My long-forgotten sight-reading skills clicked into gear, and I began to hum the music. It was the Lord of the Dance, which some of you may have recognised in the opening and closing music of Following Grandma podcasts. It was a magical moment. Keep following